Hello Internet, it's time for my prediction video for UFC 126 next weekend. Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort for the middleweight championship. First up on the card is Miguel Torres and Antonio Banuelos, and I think this is pretty much a showcase fight for Torres in his UFC debut. Banuelos typically fights pretty sloppy, which is not a good strategy against Torres. And while Torres doesn't look invincible the way he used to a few years ago, I still think he's top 5 at bantamweight. And now he could get bowled here because nobody saw that shit coming at all. But I doubt it. Bowles and Benavidez both have kind of taken some of the luster off of Torres, but I don't think Banuelos is as good as either of those guys. And I see Torres subbing him in either the first or the second round. I'm going to go with second. Next up, Jake Ellenberger and Carlos Eduardo Rocha. Whatever, I like mispronouncing names. Again, I think UFC is setting this up as pretty much a showcase for Ellenberger, who's looked good in his last few, particularly against Condit, when nobody expected him to do that well. He's looked great on the feet, and pretty much has his way with people wrestling-wise. So he's going to dictate where the fight goes, basically. And I think it's likely that he'll try to keep it on the feet, because this Rocha guy is apparently a submission badass or whatever. But even if Ellenberger gets down, I think he'll do okay, because he showed pretty good sub-defense against Condit and Mike Pyle. And from what we've seen of Rocha, not only against McRae, but like the other 2 fights I could find from him, he tends to get himself in bad positions. And I think Ellenberger's going to get him in one of said positions and just ground and pound his way to a TKO victory. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Rocha whipped out some kind of badass sub, but I just think Ellenberger's too experienced and too savvy to let that happen. And next up, John Jones and Ryan Bader. This is a fucking good one, but I don't see how anybody can pick it against Jones here. And sure, Bader's undefeated, and he's got some good wins to his name against Jardine and Little Nog, but he hasn't fought anybody who fights the way Jones does, and also he didn't look all that good in either of those fights, I don't think. He lost the second to Jardine, the second round, and couldn't really hold him down past the first. And the same thing with Little Nog. Once it got past the first round, Bader couldn't hold him down. So, and he's looked content to stand for the most part in his recent fights, which I think is a bad strategy against Jones. But even if he wants to take Jones down, I don't know that he'll be able to, because Jones has already gone up against some really good wrestlers in Matt Yushenko, Hamill, Jake O'Brien. So I think Bader's just a beefed up version of Hamill. So I expect Jones to thrash him the same way he did with You Ate Me Cake. And I think it's going to happen early. So I'm going with Jones by the second round TKO. Next up is Rich Franklin, Forrest Griffin, which I know everybody's calling this the Franklin, but this one's kind of a pick'em in my mind. It's not nearly as lopsided as people seem to think. But I'm going to go with the slight underdog here in Forrest. Now, a lot's being made about how Franklin's such a smart, cerebral fighter, and etc., but people are overlooking that for the last few years, Forrest has kind of become that kind of fighter himself. And I think we might see him try to wrestle with Franklin. Well, maybe not wrestle, but just out-physical him. You know what I'm saying? And use his size, because Forrest is a much bigger guy. And he's not taller, but he's bigger. But he tends to fight taller. As stupid as that fucking sounds, but you know what I mean. He uses his reach, even when it's minimal, to keep the range that he wants and kind of control the pace. Now, that being said, Forrest has a lazy jab and not very good head movement, and a tendency to leave himself wide open when he's clipped, while Franklin has a stiff jab, really quick jab, and great boxing. But is he going to be able to utilize that to finish Forrest or decision him? I don't think so. So I'm looking for Forrest to control shit just enough to rack up points and earn his way to a decision victory. Now, on to Vitor Belfort and Anderson Silva. I am so fucking excited for this because I think Vitor is going to be the one to dethrone Silva here. He's just too good a boxer and has too much power in his hands. And it's the first time we've seen Silva fight anyone like that. And for both guys, obviously their Achilles heel is wrestlers who will take them down and just pretty much grind their way to a victory. But neither is going to do that to the other here. They're both going to stand there. And it might be fucking boring at first because they're both typically counter fighters. But once either guy sees an opening and goes for the kill, it's going to be quick. Anderson loves to taunt guys, to do stupid shit like fancy switch kicks and changing stance and dropping his hands and bullshit like that. And I fucking hope he tries that against Vitor. I sincerely do. The same kind of shit that he did with Forrest and Talaslitis and even Sonnen. And Sonnen put him on his ass for it. Yeah, in the first round he did. Not in the fifth when it kind of looked like it. That was a slip, but in the first, Sonnen definitely dropped Silva. Briefly. And because Sonnen likes to fucking put his hands down and stick his chin out because he thinks he's that big of a fucking badass. And I think Vitor's going to capitalize on that and put his ass to sleep. The only thing that worries me about Vitor, though, is that he's kind of content to hang out in the clinch, which always works out well for Silva. So I don't think he's going to do that well if it gets to that position, but I don't expect him to let it. And Vitor is going to be the one to bust the myth of the pound-for-pound greatest in the world or whatever. And that's going to be that. It's going to be fucking awesome. And Monk, you're going to have a new Avon Sig. Speaking of which, Monk, why you no shave face? That shit cracks me up every time. But I completely understand why you no shave face. This you see right here. This is what I look like without a beard, which is why I usually keep one. So I commiserate with you, sir, on the non-shaving issue. Well, that's it. That's it for now, I guess. Next weekend, or rather the weekend after UFC 126 is the beginning of, hey buddy, Strikeforce's heavyweight tourney, which is going to be all kinds of ass kickery. And I'm looking for Fedor to win the whole thing, obviously, because, well, we'll know immediately when he fights Bigfoot how he's going to bounce back from his first legit loss. Oh shit. Oh shit. Fucking the Strikeforce Diaz and Santos thing starts here in 30 minutes. So for that, I'm picking Roger Gracie to sub, Trevor Prangley, Herschel Walker to get upset by this, whatever the fucking clown he's fighting his name is, by submission, and Jacare is going to submit Waller, and Diaz is going to submit Cyborg. So, but who gives a fuck about that? This video is all about the fucking super awesomeness that's going to happen next weekend when Vitor wrecks shit and puts Anderson Silva to sleep. Oh, it's going to be so killer. Alright, that's it. See you next time.